Imagine you're standing outside the prison gas chamber watching as an inmate is escorted inside. These are his final moments before execution. The atmosphere around you is solemn, grim even. Everyone around you has a gloomy look on their face. They all know what's about to take place. Except the man in the chamber. He has a smile on his face. It's a look of genuine happiness because he truly has no idea where he is or what's about to happen to him. Viewer discretion is advised as some aspects of this story may be difficult to listen to.
The man's name was Joe Arridy. He was born in Pueblo, Colorado on April 29, 1915, and was the son of two immigrants from the Ottoman Empire, who happened to be first cousins. Joe was mentally disabled and had an IQ of 46. His parents said he was a passive but happy child and spent most of his childhood playing alone and making mud pies, which is where he was at his happiest. To say his mental impairment led to a rough life would be an understatement, as he was beaten, bullied, and even sexually assaulted in his youth by fellow kids from his school. This led to him being committed to state home and training school for mental defectives, where he had also spent time on and off before these incidents. He didn't enjoy that lifestyle very much, so he headed over to the train tracks and hopped a freight rail car, which led him to the railroads of Cheyenne, Wyoming in August 1936. By the time he arrived in Wyoming, however, his life took a turn for the worst. On August 15th in Pueblo, two young girls were attacked in their sleep. Dorothy Drain was raped and murdered, while her sister Barbara was bludgeoned but survived her injuries. Police officers all over Colorado went on a manhunt trying to find the killer. On August 20th, Joe Arridy was spotted walking along the East Railway Yard of Cheyenne and was arrested by two railway detectives after they found out he was from Pueblo. He was then handed over to Sheriff George Carroll. Sheriff Carroll questioned Arridy for an hour and a half and then called the newspaper to report that he had received a full confession from Arridy for the murder of Dorothy Drain. He claimed Arridy was the sole killer. There was only one problem. The real killer, Frank Aguilar, had already been caught. They had even found the murder weapon. Aguilar denied ever meeting Arridy. After learning of this, Carroll interrogated Arridy once again, and changed his whole story afterward. He was now saying that Arridy had been Aguilar's accomplice. Aguilar changed his initial statement as well, now claiming he plotted the murder with Arridy. He later disavowed this statement and said that he was coerced into bringing Arridy into this. Some backstory on Sheriff George Carroll is needed here. He was a loud, arrogant individual who craved the spotlight. He would brag publicly about being a member of the police group that shut down the notorious Barker Gang. He cared far more about being a superstar lawman than actually seeking justice. Only 4 months later, Frank Aguilar was convicted of the rape and murder of Dorothy Drain and sentenced to death. Barbara Drain was even present at this trial and identified Frank as the killer. Unfortunately, none of this mattered in the case of Joe Arridy. Sheriff Carroll was still determined to put him behind bars, whether it was justified or not, for his own reputation's sake. George Carroll decided to take the reins and become the star of the show in the case against Arridy. He became chief presenter of evidence and never used a note during the case. He spoke completely from memory in his notable loudmouth TV show host style of talking. He was a captivating storyteller and presented Joe Arridy to be a completely different person than he actually was. He testified that Arridy was in complete control of his thoughts, speaking in clear sentences that described the colors on the walls in the bedroom, and the colors of the nightgowns that the girls wore, and even the colors of the dresses the girls would be wearing when they went to the Sunday church services. The real Joe Arridy couldn't manage any complete sentences. He didn't know what a hatchet was. He didn't even know who the current president of the United States was. He also didn't even know that his own father was present in the courtroom during the proceedings. At the sanity trial, the jury decided Arridy was mentally sane enough to stand trial for murder, even after 3 state psychiatrists classified him as an imbecile, which was a medical term at the time, and said he had the mind of a 6-year-old. Furthermore, they noted he was incapable of distinguishing between right and wrong, and therefore would be unable to perform any action with a criminal intent. At the murder trial, the defense attorney presented no evidence in this case and only cross-examined witnesses for the prosecution. He also requested that the judge set aside the earlier sanity trial verdict and that he be given permission to argue a sanity case one more time. He also requested permission to make his opening argument only after the prosecution had completed with its evidentiary case. The judge agreed to all of these conditions. Regardless, Sheriff Carroll's riveting tales of the fictitious version of Joe Arridy proved to be enough for the jury, and on April 17, 1937, Arridy was found guilty and sentenced to death. On August 13th of that year, the real killer, Frank Aguilar, was executed, and Sheriff Carroll received his $1,000 reward for the arrest of Arridy the very same day. While in prison, Arridy often played with a toy train that was given to him by prison warden Roy Best. Best became one of Arridy's closest friends in prison and even tried to get him off death row. He actually contacted the governor of Colorado to get his sentence commuted or pardoned, but to no avail. Best said Arridy was the happiest prisoner on death row. For Arridy's last meal, he requested ice cream. He sat there in the minutes before the walk to the gas chamber, just eating his ice cream and playing with his toy train. He then got full from the ice cream and asked for the warden to refrigerate it so that he could eat it later, not comprehending what was about to happen to him. Then, with escorts by his side, Joe Arridy took his final walk to the gas chamber. Before entering the chamber, Arridy gave his toy train to a fellow inmate. He was momentarily nervous, but Warden Best, in tears, grabbed his hand and reassured him that he would be okay. In his final moments, Joe Arridy was seen smiling in the gas chamber and happily talking about raising chickens and playing the harp. For decades, the stench of this wrongful execution flew under the radar in Colorado, until 2011 when Governor Bill Ritter posthumously pardoned Arridy thanks to a nonprofit group called Friends of Joe Arridy, assisted by attorney David A. Martinez and author Robert Persky, who wrote a book about Arridy's wrongful conviction. Ritter was quoted as saying, "Pardoning Joe Arridy cannot undo this tragic event in Colorado history. It is in the interests of justice and simple decency, however, to restore his good name." In 2007, Joe Arridy's supporters raised money and erected a tombstone at his gravesite in Canyon City, Colorado. His grave reads, "Here lies an innocent man."
Studies have shown since that time that people with limited mental capacity are more vulnerable to coercion and have a higher frequency of making false confessions. We've made great strides since the 1930s as far as wrongful convictions go, but that doesn't erase the damage that's already been done. So Joe Arridy's story must continue to be told so that we don't repeat the same mistakes and the world will know that he was murdered as an innocent man. Thanks for tuning into another video. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons as well as turn on notifications so you can be first in line to hear more true horror stories like this. It's farewell for now, and I'll see you in the next video.